Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's webinar. The topic for today is China Human Resources, the trends and challenges that are occurring today. Before we begin today's presentation, I just want to let everyone know that a copy will be distributed at the end. In addition, just to test the system, if you could all raise your hands if you can hear me, then I know that the system is working properly. In addition to that, you will have a questions section on your panel. If you do have any questions during the webinar, then we will have a small Q&A at the end. Alternatively, I will email you separately in order to answer any questions that you may have. Before we begin today's webinar, I just want to briefly introduce Clayco Group to those of you that are new to our webinar sessions. Clayco Group is an international corporate service providing firm that does company formation, accounting, tax, and other administration services. The head office of the company is based in Hong Kong with 8 additional offices in China and Singapore. Our main clientele are foreign invested companies that are looking to enter the Asia-Pacific region, usually starting off by having holding entities in Hong Kong or Singapore and physical operations that are based in China. One of our advantages is that we do have consultants on staff who speak 7 languages, giving us the ability to actually cater to our clients in their own languages. A little bit about myself. My name is Christina Kohler and I'm a director of Clayco Group. I've been a member of Clayco since 2003 when I relocated to Shanghai to open our first office in China. We've grown since then. The majority of our clients are from Europe, North and South America, as well as Australia. I'm also co-author on our monthly magazine, which is called ChinaInvest.biz, and if you are interested in subscribing, then there's a very easy function on our website to do that. To begin today's presentation, I actually wanted to utilize Clayco as the case study in regards to the trends and challenges that we've been facing over the last 10 years of being located in China. And obviously, the situation is a little bit different from sector to sector, from industry to industry, and from city to city. I moved in 2003 with very little knowledge on the labor law regulations, as well as the trends in terms of salary increments, bonuses, etc. Well, let me explain to you a little bit the trends that have occurred in the last 10 years. And I'll explain this to you from the point of view of a startup company that has just entered the market, starting off with hiring 1 employee to then growing to having 70 employees based throughout our 8 offices. The trend initially, and it was a universal trend amongst all foreign investors at that time in 2003, 2004, and 2005, was to give a minimum 10% salary increase to all Chinese staff. There was not even a negotiation involved in there. If you didn't give a 10% increase, then actually the employee would leave 100%. At that time, you have to imagine that there were a lot of foreign investors coming into the market, and it was very easy for people to move from job to job. And their main concern at that time was salary, was the netto amount going into the bank account. And what has been very interesting over the period of time is the actual changing of the attitudes of the local people in terms of what they actually want from a job. My experience over the years has been that I will outpay my staff compared to my competitors because my goal is to keep my staff, train them to a level whereby they can handle clients on their own and they can be promoted into senior positions where they then handle, where they then are superior and have staff that they take care of and that they train as well. So initially, our strategy was, at the time, 2003, 2004, 2005, was to comply with the local trends and give the 10% salary increases. At around 2005, 2006, there was a little bit of instability in the market. People were tending to stay within their jobs, and the trend was that the salary increments were changing from between 5% to 15% at that time. So it was acceptable to give a 5% increase, but still the majority of companies were giving a 10% increase. Then the financial crisis hit. And the trend at that time was actually to still give a 10% increase, but to eliminate the bonuses. Now, many companies in China have a variety of different ways on how to award bonuses. The general trend is that they will provide a 13-month salary. The 13th month salary will be paid together with the December salary and will be the guaranteed bonus. On top of that, after Chinese New Year, and I say after Chinese New Year because generally there's a lot of blue-collar workers that don't return to companies after the Chinese New Year period, so usually bonuses or secondary bonuses are awarded after Chinese New Year, are usually a 2-week salary, and if it's a senior management position are usually a 1-month salary. So in total you're giving about a 14-month salary as compensation to a staff. So when the crisis hit at the end of 2008, almost all companies, around 95% of all companies, eliminated the bonus system of both the 13-month as well as the secondary bonus that was issued at the end of Chinese New Year. And I can tell you straight off the bat, nobody was complaining. Everybody was happy that they could keep their jobs, that there was no downsizing, because in the media there was constant articles and news clips about global companies, multinational companies, downsizing tremendously. And in China, they froze headcount, but they didn't fire anybody, and that was the key for most people there. Starting in 2011, as the economy started picking up, people did want to have higher salary increases, and it was very much related to the inflation that was occurring in China at the time. As you can imagine, inflation has been increasing tremendously over the various years. 2012 was a real slowdown. And according to the Hayes Salary Guide, inflation in 2012 was at 3.5%. But it is still expected that salary increases will reach above 5% for the year of 2012, and that the majority of companies will give a 6% increase at a minimum. Bonuses are varying. I would say that multinationals are generally not providing bonuses because they have the prestige that people want to stay working with them. SMEs do have this problem because many of their employees are looking to relocate to the multinationals, and therefore they are providing at least the 13-month salary as a bonus. They might not be providing the secondary bonus after Chinese New Year. So the salary trends over the years has been phenomenal. The biggest question that I do get from many of my clients is, when will it stop? If inflation is at 3.5%, how can we keep going with a 10% salary increase? It just doesn't make sense. At some point it has to end. It is true, it has to end. I think for a lot of startup companies and SMEs that have been on the market for 5 to 10 years, and have grown slowly on the market, so maybe they have 10, 15, 20 employees, each of these employees may be critical to their operation, and they may not want to rock the boat and either fire individuals or have them leave. As such, they are giving in and giving actually what is no longer a fair compensation, but what is a necessity compensation in order to keep all of their staff. There are a few SMEs that have rocked the boat, and they have found that staff have stayed. And this will be actually one of the trends that I would like to explain to all of you today in terms of what employees are actually looking for from their employers in terms of growth and development within their job sectors. Before I begin, I do want to give you a little bit of a trend in certain sectors about what is actually occurring. In the accounting sector, many FIEs are localizing their operations because the Chinese economy is still quite positive. In the architecture sector, this is a tremendous growth in the market. and there's continued prosperity for architects, intermediate and mid-level designers, and bilingual capabilities are a requirement, but this is usually not a problem. And the market is full of these people. In fact, we have had a client who has opened up their back office. It's an architectural design firm that has opened up their back office in China in order just to hire designers because the wages are much lower than in Hong Kong or in Europe. In the banking sector, again, there is quite a growth in this area. Candidates that are being sought have to be multilingual, and they have to understand the China regulatory system in terms of banking. In engineering construction, candidates with a specialization in tunneling, geology, planning are particularly sought after. In the finance sector, people are looking actually for returning nationals. So Chinese individuals that have been working abroad who want to come back to China and understand everything that's associated with finance technology. Human resources. It's extremely difficult to find senior HR managers who are willing to relocate to the Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4 cities of China. This is again a trend that is occurring right now, that multinational corporations as well as SMEs are relocating their factory sites from the Tier 1 cities of Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen, Guangzhou to the Tier 2, 3, 4 cities of Wuxi, Wuhan, etc. And finding qualified HR managers to sit in these locations has not been easy. The IT sector. Technological managers, English-speaking IT support candidates, and developers are also being looked at. And again, I've had quite a few clients set up IT back offices in China in order to do all the development, IT development, research and development, etc. Life sciences is also increasing, particularly in the healthcare sector, and finding qualified individuals in all categories of management positions has also not been easy. Manufacturing and operations, so this is also interrelated to the HR side, has been very difficult to find people, senior management, all along the chain. So whether it's sales, production, supply chain, general manager, business development, who are willing to be located in these Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4 cities has really not been easy. Oil and gas is growing, and they're looking for individuals that are not only local but also expatriates. The property sector, in particular the retail sector, is growing strong, and they're looking for candidates in all types of businesses, whether it's real estate agencies, development companies, so private equity firms, etc. Sales and marketing, big boom in the retail sector. As everybody can imagine, retail has been increasing phenomenally, not only in retail shops, but also on e-commerce platforms. And companies are looking for qualified individuals that might even have overseas retail experience, that are multilingual, and have a very good customer service understanding. So fighting employee turnover, how do you actually prevent employees from leaving you? Well, as I said earlier, the Chinese market has always been interesting. In 2003 to 2005, in order to keep staff, people were overpaying their staff. That was the only way to actually keep them. I'm sure everybody has heard of the sayings that if an employee would receive 500 RMB more, then they will move companies, etc. And this has always been a critical concern for all HR managers, general managers, etc. I can tell as a fact, and being a manager in China and taking care of 70 employees, almost 50% of my time is handling HR issues, whether it be turnover, negotiating salaries, etc. And generally 50% is on the lower end. Most HR managers or GMs are actually calculating about 70% of their time on HR issues. There is a statistic for 2013 that 1 in 3 employees is at a high risk of turnover, and this is twice the number compared to any other global markets. So it just goes to show that the turnover rates in China are still tremendously high. Whereas people were outpaying salaries, really the attraction right now for most employees is what is their career path within a company? Is there any development that can occur for them? And this is particularly for people that are in mid-management to senior management that are looking to be trained, that are looking to grow within one organization versus hopping from one organization to another. And obviously, as one gains more responsibility within a company, then the Chinese have realized that with more responsibility, they will get a higher salary level, and therefore they are keen on staying within organizations. Companies that are developing employment brands, this has become a really big issue for multinationals. They are really trying to go onto job fairs in China in order to brand their company amongst new graduates. And they're trying to incentivize even employees to brand the company in order to attract talent. Obviously, if you are building your brand amongst these graduates, then of course all the competitors will start overpaying because they're also trying to attract the talent. So it's a vicious cycle, actually. Companies initially were outpaying. If you're building a brand to try and attract good staff, then again your competitors will start outpaying and outbidding as well. It really is a poacher's market in China. And as you can imagine, a company continues to grow. As companies continue to grow in China, they have an enormous demand for qualified and experienced employees. The demand is now exceeding supply, and companies must fight amongst themselves for the best talent. So it's a poacher's market. It's a buyer's market where they're outbidding each other by salary levels. And here I would like to give one case study whereby a friend of mine working for a headhunting firm was recruiting somebody as a general manager for an FMCG company. The general manager position, they were actually poaching this individual from another firm, from another competitor. And the initial rate of the employment started with an annual salary package of 500,000 RMB, everything included. This employee, this candidate, was about to sign on the contract and decided actually to go back to her company and renegotiate her package, saying that another competitor was looking to hire her and whether they could compete with the salary level. The existing company of this candidate actually outbidded the other company, and this outbidding war for this one position continued for almost a 2.5-month, 3-month period, whereby finally this candidate was able to receive an annual package of 1.3 million RMB, including allowances such as housing, car, and additional items. So you can see even today, and this occurred actually in 2012, that candidates are also becoming smart. Local candidates in China are becoming smart. They are renegotiating their packages. If they're being headhunted, then they are realizing that people need their skills and their qualifications, and companies are willing to pay. So it's a very difficult market to operate in, particularly if you're a multinational or an SME that's looking to start its business. Most SMEs are not willing to pay for a general manager, for a local general manager, a salary of 1.3 million RMB on an annual basis. There'd have to be a very high return, guaranteed return by the individual if they would do that. So what attracts employees does not retain them, and this is something I can't emphasize more today. It's not about providing a higher paying job, but it's about a company being flexible with the career development plan of an individual and realizing that in order to retain staff, it's not about salary. It's about how can I develop this individual within my organization so that they don't want to leave. And this is something that needs to be implemented within companies' organizations, and it's starting to be implemented in multinationals as we speak. And there are further items, tips on how you can actually do this. There was a study that was conducted saying that actually the expectation of an employee increases by 20% retention if they're given a proper career development plan. So how can you do this? Well, there are several points here to make sure that, or several tips here in order to explain how you can do this. The first is making sure your compensation is competitive, but with a focus on career development. So making sure that your compensation is at a fair pricing and that you are really focusing on the career development of this individual. The next is, if you have an HR manager, making sure that the career development plan is instilled from day one, not from 2 to 3 years down the line. So not only you have to pay fair salaries, but really focus on career development plans. If you don't have an HR manager, then you as a general manager should develop these plans in order to keep your staff. Again, begin the career planning from day one of the employee's tenure. Don't wait on this. Make sure that you do this from day one and you set goals and achievements that you want this individual to reach. Be flexible. Allow for non-obvious moves between departments. So for example, you might have an individual that starts off in your business development team, and this is what they actually applied for. This was the job. But during their first year, you realize they're not very good for business development, but perhaps they can be very good in your logistics division. So move people between departments. Maybe even assign overseas assignments for a 3-month period or a 6-month period in order to provide more training to the individual. And most importantly, enable your managers to also participate in the career developments of their employees. If you are an SME and you have several divisions, make sure that your BD manager, your sales manager, your customer service manager, your logistics manager, make sure they are involved in the career development of their employees as well. And make sure that there are promotion incentives and development incentives that are generated. One thing that I can't emphasize more that really caters to the culture of China is that employees love to have annual dinners or having training days with other divisions in order to be able to network within one organization. So it's an important aspect also is to have these annual parties, so to speak, in order to have your staff network amongst themselves, meet other people, and understand what divisions are actually doing in the organization. I've created here 9 tips that I have learned throughout my 10-odd years in China in terms of how to retain your Chinese talent. And I have to say this can also be applied to your overseas talent as well. One is keeping salary levels at a competitive rate, so making sure that they are at a fair level. Initiate a corporate training program, and obviously every division will have a different training strategy. In business development, it might be more related to public speaking. In your customer service division, it might be more involved in negotiation skills. So develop corporate training programs that fit the divisions that you have within your organization. Providing career development opportunities, particularly for your senior management positions, is extremely important. Develop divisions within your organization. If you're an SME and right now your GM is taking care of every division, try and create heads of divisions in order to alleviate the workload of your GM and to give people more responsibility within your organization. Create a family structure. And as I said, this is part of the Chinese culture. You have to make people feel that they are included, that they know what the organization's growth plan is as a whole, but also within people's divisions. Have the annual dinners, even annual outings, whether it be hiking trips or going away for a weekend, or even showing your staff, for example, taking your staff to a logistics hub to see internally how a logistics